So I'm going to go over the real nuts and bolts of how to be involved in the Peak Living Network, how to connect with us. First step is to get on our mailing list, because that's how you get our calendar of events every month, what's coming up in the coming weeks. So peaklivingnetwork.org, which is our website, is where you sign up to be on the mailing list. And then if you haven't yet watched the video, What is the Peak Living Network? You need to watch that first before you continue with this video for the things that I'm going to be talking about here to make sense. So the first thing that's important for people to understand is that the Peak Living Network is an all-volunteer organization. We're not a social service. We can only offer what people have time to offer. And for example, the kinds of groups we have going at any time are just what someone has stepped up to lead. And so people do sometimes feel frustrated when they come to the Peak Living Network who think of us as some kind of social service, that, oh, well, why aren't you doing this? Or, gee, you took 3 days to respond to my email. Or how come there are not these other kinds of groups happening? Because we don't have any staff, we don't have any funding. We're just doing what we can do. We get to what we can get to. And the expectation of somehow this is a place where you're going to receive a lot of support. Well, yes, you will, but it's often not going to work the way a social service would work. We can't really watch out for you in certain ways. You're going to have a lot of personal initiative to get involved. Once we get to know you, we'll be watching out for you. But you have to take initiative, and you have to come into the Peak Living Network with a mindset: I'm here to give and receive support, not I'm here to just receive support. To give and receive in roughly equal measure. That's how the whole network works, is that everyone is doing as equal as possible a give and take. So if you're at a place in life where you feel like, oh, I just desperately need support, we're gonna tell you this is an organization where you're going to feel really frustrated, and we're going to say you probably need to spend another year or 2 years using social services or using a paid counselor or some other kind of system, because we're likely to drive you a little bit crazy and not be able to well meet your needs if that's where things are at. So this is not a place to come while you're in really active crisis. The Peak Living Network is really set up for people where you might say the worst is past, and where we have some kind of measure of stability, solidity in our lives. I'm not saying that everything's great, but I'm just saying we've got to a point where, okay, there's things are reasonably manageable. I'm okay. Now I want to devote some attention to healing, to the wounds that I've come in with from these really bad things that have happened before. And now I have a little space to do some healing, and I'm going to pursue that. That's really the time when the Peak Living Network is likely to feel good to you and is likely to work for you. So that then connects to another question that people want to reflect upon is this a time in my life when it's going to be good for me to be taking on some responsibility for other people's well-being? Because since this is a mutual support organization, mutual support, give and take organization, it means that, yes, we're going to be able to be there for you, but we're also going to need you to be able to really be there for us, for other people. And at some points in life, that's a wonderful thing. Many people find that terrific, to have that sense of shared support, to have a sense like I'm really valuable here, like I can really give to other people. It's not just about what other people can give to me, and that makes me feel good about myself, that I have things to contribute. But at a different point in life, that's not going to serve you well. There are times in life when we really don't want to be responsible for other people, when it wouldn't even be good for us to try to be responsible for other people, wherein we really need to be helped. We just need assistance and not be in a position where we need to give back very much. So either in a social service or someplace where we're spending money to get what you think of as one-way help, right? You're just helping me. It's not going back and forth. Peak Living Network is a two-way system, give and take. And so this is just a decision you have to make for yourself. Like, would being responsible for other people actually contribute to my healing, or would it be a burden that just right now would not be good for me? So that's something that you have to decide for yourself, but it's really going to be important before coming into the Peak Living Network again, so you don't end up frustrated or end up feeling like, oh, this actually isn't good for me. This is bringing an element into my life that that's in the way that I really don't need right now. So at the moment, almost everything that happens in the Peak Living Network is online, but we are moving towards having more things in person. We're getting to know each other more. We're growing as an organization. And that combined with the fact that the epidemic is really easing up, that's putting us in a much better position to be able to have more in-person kinds of events and to help people get in-person groups going where they live. So those things are starting to move along, but most things now they're happening are online. So there are people from all over the U.S. and Canada and the UK and Europe and to some extent even in Asia who participate in groups of ours online, and all that stuff is free because we don't have expenses except really for our Zoom account and our mailing list account, our Send in Blue that we do our mailing list on. That's really, that's all we really have to spend. Our website's over. We have some other expenses, but if people make voluntary donations and so forth to help with that, so you don't have to worry about paying for anything. So it's really important next that you familiarize yourself with the Peak Living Network principles. And there's agreements and principles. You can read those on the website. You can also watch the video, Peak Living Network Principles, again on this channel. There's a whole set of things in those principles that you're agreeing to if you come into the Peak Living Network, and where you really can't be in the Peak Living Network if you're not following those agreements. Very rarely, we've had times when we finally just had to ask people to leave. We're trying to be as inclusive an organization as we can be. But if people are just not willing to live within those principles, then we have to say, sorry, you're looking for something else. So, and those principles are things like treating people with respect, not giving advice or suggestions to people, treating people and understanding people as people are equals, stopping talking when your time is up, when you're in any PLN context where the terms are timed, in other words, respecting people's time and time processes, but just a set of principles like that are essential to how we function. So please familiarize yourself with the Peak Living Network principles, read them at peaklivingnetwork.org, or you can also watch the video, Peak Living Network principles that are on this channel. That's really important. Anybody can start a Peak Living Network group. So you may be able to join one of the ones we already have going, depending on your schedule and depending on what's available at any particular time from the Peak Living Network. But you can also start your own group. We have a video, again, on this channel about how to start and run your own group. You can be in touch with us by email, and we can even set up phone conversations with you to help you start a group. We can't be there for you about all kinds of other things from your lives. We can't counsel you until you're really involved with the network. And then again, we're not counseling you. It's a two-way system. But we are available just to help you think about the logistics. How do I recruit a group? How do I get people interested in this? Where would we meet? Am I competent to lead the group? We have very specific guidelines that you can follow for running a group. You don't have to follow them precisely, but if you want to follow them precisely, they're there for you. And in some ways, it's easier to run a group if you just follow exactly how we lay it out to do it. We're not like some organizations where if you're leading a group, you have to do it exactly our way. We don't have that in the Peak Living Network, but we have laid it out very much step by step if you want it, and that helps people work through the kind of nervousness that they have about running a group, because since most people don't have experience running groups, and we understand that. But in the Peak Living Network, you don't have to have any particular experience to run a group. Which leads to the next point about kind of Peak Living Network membership. If you consider yourself part of the Peak Living Network and you're willing to keep to our principles, then you're part of the Peak Living Network. And that also means you don't have to get anybody's permission to start a Peak Living Network group. If your group is run on Peak Living Network principles, then it's a Peak Living Network group. And it doesn't matter what it's about. So you could have a Peak Living Network group that's just a general support group. It's open to both men and women. There's no theme about it. But you might also want to have a specific type of group. You might want to have a group that's just for women, or you might want to have a group that's just for people of color. Or you might want to have a group that's on a particular topic, like a group for parents about parenting, or a group for school teachers to be able to support each other about the experience of being a school teacher. Whatever it is, you can create your own theme if you want to have a theme, and you can create your own constituency, like women or people of color, as I was saying, lesbians and gay men, however, you can create whatever constituency you want if you want to have a constituency-based group. You're running the group. It's your decision what it's about. Anybody can do it. Believe in yourself that you can create a group and you can run a group. You can do it. And we're here to back you up and support you through that process. To get involved in the Peak Living Network forum, at this point our forum is on an app called Slack. And we may be moving on from the Slack over time, but for now, that's where we're at. So I'm going to say a little baseline stuff about being part of the Slack. So to register for the Slack, you need to send an email to our email address, peaklivingnetwork@juno.com, and just ask for the registration link for the Slack. You'll get a bunch of other information about joining the Peak Living Network that'll come with it. Slack is an app for communication in a group. It's essentially an app for creating a forum. So you'll find all different kinds of topics. They're called channels. They're not called topics, but they're essentially topics on the Slack. So you'll see where people are talking about parenting issues, or you'll see where people are talking about, health issues, or you'll see where people are talking about depression, or just different issues in emotional healing. And you can just hop on those discussions. You'll see what's already posted there, and you can add posts. There's also a channel called support groups, where you can see a listing of what our current support groups are and see what groups have openings. We also announce openings in support groups as they come up in the newsletter, which you sign up for at peaklivingnetwork.org. I'm going to keep pushing you towards the newsletter, because reading the newsletter is really the key way to know what's going on in the Peak Living Network and to be able to feel like you're part of it. So the Slack app is the place to find out what support groups are happening, and that's going to include things like book discussion groups and groups for people who want to work through the exercises from the Joyous Recovery. That stuff is all listed on the Slack space. And then we also put out notices of upcoming events. They're also in the newsletter, but you get reminders or announcements about upcoming events on the Slack space of when a co-counseling training is coming up, if you want to take a co-counseling training, or when the next open meeting is, which everyone is welcome at. So the Slack space is a really key communication place. It's easier to learn on laptop than on phone. It works fine on phone once you know how to use it. It's just a little harder to learn on phone. You can learn on your phone, but we just recommend, if you have access to a laptop when you're first using it, to start using Slack there, because then you'll very quickly have a grasp of how Slack is set up and how you participate in the different communication there. A couple key points, though, I'd like people to be aware of about the Slack. It is somewhat private, but it's not. I would not call it secure. It's not searchable. People can't just do a search and find out who's on our Slack space and read anything you've written there. But all people really have to do to get on it is to say they would like to join it and give us their name and a legitimate email address, and they're going to be able to get on it. So it's somewhat private, but you have to treat it as not a secure area. So for people who have serious safety concerns at this point in their lives, and most people don't, but for people who have serious safety concerns, you have to think about that with respect to being part of the Slack space. Don't put a photo up. Don't put your last name up. Things like that. If you're living in any kind of danger currently, or have real serious privacy needs, and so that's an important thing to be aware of about the Slack space. The people won't necessarily respond rapidly to a post you put up. Somebody might respond to you in a few minutes. Somebody might respond to you in a number of days. So people also need to not get frustrated if they're not hearing back immediately about posts they put up on the Slack. It's when people get to it and read it and add their comments to it. And then the other thing that is important to understand about Slack is that you don't have to, quote, join a channel. There's this process where you can join a channel, which are the discussion topics. You can join a channel and become a member of that channel, but actually there's no need to do that. Joining a channel doesn't affect your ability to read the posts on that channel or to write on that channel. anybody can read all the posts on a channel and write on the channel. And so there's no need to join it. And it's fine to join it, but here's the issue. What joining a channel does, it means that you will get a notification each time somebody puts up a new post on the channel. Now, if you want that, that's great. The problem is that many people start to get frustrated by how many notifications they're getting. So rather than unjoining from channels, they turn their notifications off. Well, there's almost no point, or it's very limited point, to being on the Slack if you turn your notifications off, because that means you're not going to get notified when announcements go up on the Slack that we want everybody to be getting. And there's a channel called PLN Announcements, and there's a channel called General Discussions, that those posts, not on any other channel, but those posts automatically go out to everybody. And we want them. We want to have places where we can put posts that will go out to everybody. If you turn your notifications off, you're never going to hear when those things go up. And then that really doesn't work as well. You're kind of out of the communication loop about key stuff that's happening in the network. So don't join a whole bunch of channels. Only join the ones where you really want to get notified every time there's a new post up. You can participate in all of them without joining them, and we ask that you not turn your notifications off. I mean, turn them off for a period of time, but don't just turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off when you have a meeting or something where you need to not be getting them. Otherwise, it's really, really limited value to be on the Peak Living Network Slack. I mean, this is our communication hub, and so we want you to be part of that, part of the communication. So just a couple other points about Peak Living Network that are really important for people to understand. First, this is an organization about healing. Everyone who's here should be here because they want to pursue emotional healing and support other people's healing, not for any other purpose. So we ask that you not be here because you want to make networking connections for your business or your professional practice. It's really not acceptable, for example, to turn people here into paid clients or enter into any kind of business relationships with people that you meet through the Peak Living Network. We ask that you not be here because you're looking for friends. You may make friends here, but we ask you not be why you're here. And it's not acceptable to ask people for dates that you meet through the Peak Living Network. Please don't come here looking for a partner. People are here to pursue emotional healing, and we ask that you not be here for any other reason. Next, my availability is very limited. And some people who know me from my other life, my professional work, are hoping that the Peak Living Network is kind of a back door to get to have conversations with me or get to have my support about personal crises. And I so wish I could do it, and I can't do it. The Peak Living Network is an organization that's got a couple hundred people in it, and I can't be available to people individually about their situations. And I'm sorry about that. But in some ways I'm not sorry about it, because I would be kind of betraying the essential notion of what the Peak Living Network is all about if I let the focus be on me. Like, the point is we're relying on each other here. So my role in the Peak Living Network is to point people towards each other. If someone says, oh, I need support with such and such, I don't provide that support. I say, oh, you might want to contact so-and-so, or you might want to join this group that's going on over here. And I'm sorry, but I can't, I'm not available to be the one, and it wouldn't even make sense for me to be the one. The Peak Living Network is completely separate from my other life. For folks who know me through my books or any of my domestic abuse work, the Peak Living Network is not a healing from domestic abuse organization. You'll get a lot of support for that if that's what you need, but I'm just saying that's not the overall theme of our organization. Our organization is for anyone who's pursuing healing from anything. Confidentiality is very important in the Peak Living Network. Anything you hear here needs to stay here. You don't go telling other people anything you heard from someone in the Peak Living Network. That's between you and that person, or if you're in a group, it's limited to the people who are in the group. Confidentiality is really, really important to us here, and we want you to take that seriously. This is a place where people are sharing, and they're often sharing things that are important to them, and sometimes things that are quite loaded that involve some significant vulnerability for them. And so we need you to not be repeating it anywhere else. I encourage people to read my book, The Joyous Recovery. You don't have to, but I encourage people to read it. It just gives you so much basis for understanding how we're talking about things in the Peak Living Network, what our groups are about, how we're understanding each other, why we talk in certain terms, why we even have some of the groups that we have. So it's just a really, really useful resource. And then finally, this is an organization that you can help build. This is an organization that belongs to the participants, and you can play a role in shaping it. If you think there's certain kinds of groups that can be happening, you can help make them happen, or you can get to know other people in the network and then encourage them to get those kinds of groups happening. If you think the organization should be having certain kinds of conversations, you can make those conversations happen. If you think an open meeting should be devoted to a certain topic, you can take steps to have it so that one of our monthly meetings will discuss that topic about emotional healing. Anything that's related to emotional healing is welcome here. And you can help build the Peak Living Network and shape it into what you want it to be. It's an organization that belongs to the people who are participating in it.